I'm Professor Spira, and I'm here with Tony Baliby, and we're going to do our third question and answer. This is our live question and answer. We already have a bunch of questions here, so we will get to that. But what's going on, Tony? How you doing?
Nothing too much, man. I'm doing good. Just kind of preparing right now for a fast. Um, just want to do some deeper work, man, and so I'm doing good. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. This is gonna be interesting. This is the first time I'm directing people. I embedded this live video feed into Mucus-free-Life.com, and I created a page on Mucus-free-Life.com and embedded it there. And so let's go ahead and have folks go there. So I will, if people do want to leave some messages, you can leave them on the page on Mucus-free-Life.com, and I'll kind of periodically take a look, and maybe we might have some time to go over some things toward the end. So first topic that we want to talk about a little bit is mucoid plaque. So I'm going to turn this over to Tony, and I know he's got a few questions about mucoid plaque, and it's been something that's being discussed right now out there, kind of a hot topic. So take it away, Tony.
Yeah. My question is kind of revolving around, like, what's the best ways to, I guess, approach, like, really digging out that mucoid plaque. From my experience, like, a lot of the pictures that people post about their mucoid plaque eliminations, like, I actually got a lot of that stuff out on a mucusless diet where I did, like, fruit during the day and salads at night with regular enemas, like very regular, and like short fast, 2 or 3 day fast here and there. But it was those salads that, and I guess it might not even be the mucoid plaque. It's like those long ropes of feces with mucus. Like, I was getting that stuff out with the roughage of the salads after short fast. But I know, like, at a certain point you got to dig deeper as well. So how, like, that's kind of my question, is kind of about that process of really digging out that mucoid plaque.
Yeah. It's
yeah. And does it change over time? That was the thing that I was really thinking of, is like, does it change how you have to approach it?
So what I've basically seen over the years, of course I've practiced Mucusless Diet over 12 years, is there's different phases of the transition, and this is the kind of thing I'm sure at some point, we like to try, and as I think I read something not too long ago where they tried to sort of categorize the periods of like fasting or transition, but we like to categorize things like that, and sometimes it doesn't always work because you have to do those kind of things real broad. You have to have real broad strokes because there's so many different experiences and directions that individual people can go in. With mucoid plaque, there tends to be, and I just say, the first couple years, but especially the first year, if you start practicing just the traditional transition diet, and you're not even getting into herbs and that kind of stuff, you're dealing with the Mucusless Diet Healing System book, transition diet, including enemas. If you add the lemon juice in, which is where we've kind of taken into the lemon juice enemas as being fairly standard for us. When you get into that, along with the periodic fasting, you're gonna see some changes. You're gonna see some results. You're gonna see some waste eliminated, a lot of waste eliminated, more than you thought was in you, more than you could ever imagine. Waste is gonna be coming out, and that's just the mucusless diet. That's just because what's happening now is people people, we like toys, and we like, concoctions. And what I would like to move toward is a much more grown up approach to these, what I call ancillaries, meaning these things that are on that can aid the diet part. So that would be the herbs, that would be the enemas or ancillary, that would be uh, uh, chiropractics or massage or natural dentistry, or anything you do that's not the diet part. These side therapies, Sedona method, releasing therapies. We have all of these tools that we can use. When we are using these tools to aid our transition dietarily, that's when they are at their best. But what a lot of people do is they try to do the herbs first. They try to do some of these kind of herbal things and all that stuff first. Now, Arid has a herbal room formula, and but that was I practiced the Mucusless diet for about 10 years before I even really started studying and taking a look at the herbal piece. And I still don't really talk about it publicly. I use it with people that need it, that I work with one-on-one. But there needs to be a paradigm change, in my opinion, for most people that use it. And the way that it's talked about has to change. The way that it's thought about has to change. And and so before I put anything out there, publicly, I always had to have my stuff together. So it's not time for that, at least for me, to be really getting into that kind of thing. The reason I'm talking about that is that kind of came out of nowhere. The reason I'm talking about that is because it came up where there was this debate of, I think Doug got this real big mucoid plaque thing that came out, and he put a picture of it up in the forum. Professor Arnold there at Mucusless Diet Healing System Facebook support group. And so there's people that was like, they were like, well, what'd you do? Well, he had done some kind of GI broom that I think had might have had some bentonite clay in it, the psyllium husk, and and that stuff is fairly standard. There's a lot of people that get real deep into the bentonite clay piece. They get into they get into those pieces, and like I said, I think there's a place for stuff, but it's hard to talk about these topics when you're coming from a Mucusless diet standpoint in sort of an intelligent way without people getting too excited. Because I've talked to people where you start bringing up these little ancillaries and herbs and all this kind of stuff, and they go hog wild. They go crazy. It's like they're into drugs or something. Like, oh man, it's like, well, I mean, it's cool. Like, use it. It's like, if I get a massage or I do some, neurolymphatic points, like, it's cool, it's great, like, use that. But I think the way that we approach these things mentally is going to have long-term effects on how we proceed for years to come, because herbs are not something that you're supposed to be doing for years and years, and it's ways to use them where you can get a little kick, you can get a little elimination, that kind of thing. But it's not something that you just like, that you have to be beholden to. So as far as the mucoid plaque, that's for the people that say that it doesn't exist. I just sell them okay. It's kind of like trying to talk to a meteor about eating it. You're just like, okay, you eat meat if you want to. That's how my attitude about the folks. Like, well, you believe that there's no such thing as mucoid plaque if you want to. Just because it didn't come out of you doesn't mean that all this slime and this stuff that's coming out of all these other people that are actually doing the work, that are actually transitioning and getting into the transition diet, getting into some enemas and some colonics and that kind of thing. Just because they're getting the results of seeing this black slime and this green slime and all this stuff come out, You know, just because they doing it and you're not, but you think that you're super healthy and that you're clean, you know, I mean, that's not our fault. But yeah, so it was one, I guess, to me, talking about it now, it's just not a big deal, because I've been living with seeing that stuff coming out and seeing other people showing pictures of it and
Yeah.
talking about their experiences for so many years. It's just the most commonplace thing ever. I mean, it's like urination or something, or sweating. I'm even thinking about. I mean, we get into, people get excited about talking about urination because we talk about the filtering of the kidneys, but we mucoid plaque is that's just there. Now, over years and years of time, what happens is, I've noticed I really only dealt with that black slime elimination once, when just sort of had a series of days, and this was like several months into practicing the diet and starting doing the lemon enemas and doing a little bit of fasting. Then that crazy stuff came out, and I really haven't had an elimination like that. I mean, there's times when I might have been eating something that was dark that created black bowel movements, but that's different. That was very different from these hardened. Another thing people want to try to say, well, the intestines, there's not hardened stuff. There's nothing that's hardened inside because it's moist and wet. Well, that's the stuff that came out of me. Some of that stuff was hard, like stone.
Right. Right.
Feces stones, and you get these things that look like they had just been up against the wall of the intestine, and it just came out, and it's like this piece of black leather or something. That stuff is there.
Yeah, like I remember, like when I first got into the diet, and I was doing like the 3-day fast back to back, and hitting these salad brooms. Like I was getting a lot of this stuff out that a lot of people are showing, like after long fruit fasts. Like I saw a lot of that kind of stuff coming out, and that's the piece that confuses me sometimes, because it's like, I just wonder, like maybe they skipped that broom piece. Like maybe they went from vegan to the fruit dieting, because I got that stuff out using the salads like in between short fasts. And since then,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Like the piece with me is like I know there's still a lot of stuff in me, and I want to get it out. But it's just like I haven't been able to do that same amount of work and get those kind of results. It's like nowadays when I get mucus out, it's more like smaller strings of mucus that might be green or something like that, but I'm not getting like those long ropes of feces like I was.
Yeah. And it definitely, the thing is, it changes. There's sometimes where you might go a long period of time and not see anything like that. Then you might have got into going back and eating some mucus lean stuff. Then all of a sudden you do a fast for a week, and you do a couple enemas, and here comes like this whole slime conglomerate out. But to me, there's a difference between the decades old slime, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make with talking about what happens toward the beginning of the diet. There's a difference between the stuff that's been in you for decades or years, or however long you've been living, and then the little bit of slime buildup that might take place over the course of a couple weeks or a month at the worst, if you are eating real mucus lean. Because you can get into periods where you go weeks, or you might even go a couple months or something, where you're eating poorly. But as long as you're still hitting that transition, and you're still dealing with the mechanics, then that's where it's at, and you're eventually going to get to a point where that doesn't mess with you. in that way. But so you'll still be eliminating, some of that slime. But like I said, it's different. And I get all graphic. I was gonna say it smells different. You can tell. That's one way you can tell something is super old and fetid, because it'll just like, it'll be like death.
Right. Oh yeah, man.
Death in your toilet, and
it is bad. Another thing I was thinking about is like we have this mucoid plaque coating the intestine, and like when you fast, it's like it starts squeezing into the middle, and that's when you hit that salad and it like comes through and scrapes it down. But what I was wondering is can that process of fasting actually create like a long mucus rope type thing?
Well, yeah, if the mucus is in there, like if you get several days where you've been fasting and you've been doing some edibles or something like that, and the whole process of fasting is about contraction. And as you fast, you start to see that your intestines contract, your venous system contracts and starts to squeeze, and everything kind of contracts in. And so what ends up happening is if you have sort of gotten a lot of the food and all the feces and stuff out of your intestines, now you're dealing with whatever was stuck on the walls. And as your intestines start to kind of contract, it might bring some mucus on this side of the wall and some on this side, and it's gonna bring them together and kind of let's do a little whatever, one of those things. And and then that's what, and once you really release it, then it's gonna come out in that kind of in that kind of manner. Another thing is parasites. And I tend to look at all of that as the same thing personally, because to me it's mucoid plaque it's all of the above. It's like when I say mucoid, like I'm including the worms because they're there. Like we don't have to. It's not if you have worms. It's how many do you have and how long is it going to take for you to eliminate them. So if you assume that you have tapeworms and all these different names for the worms, you also have tons of mucus. So it's not like you're going to have worms and no mucus. So the worms end up being, the worm, like I just look at the worms like they're mucus, but they just happen to be alive in a different way, and they're moving around in you and eating on you and stuff. But by the time they come out, they die. But that's where drinking the lemon juice and lemon juice enemas. Some folks like to throw a few cloves of garlic in a green drink or something like that. There's things to do, but over time it's gonna move those things out. Of course, the parasite herbal formulas can be an interesting path, but yeah, so that's that. Now I got a question here from Anya asking how many enemas in a row would be too much in your experience and opinion? For example, how many days of enemas and how many days break from enemas would you recommend? Love as always. That's kind of a tough question because each person is different, and I tend to leave I kind of leave that open on purpose. When you notice where I've come to use the term regular enemas, and then when I talk about, there's people that do them every day. I've done them every day for a long time. Some people do them every other day. Some people only do them during fasting periods. Some people might go a couple years and only do them for fasting periods, and then see the benefit of them, and then get into them where they're doing them more frequently. So I tend to not be real hardcore about it, because to me this whole process is an educational process, and you could be doing it's all part of your transition. You could be on the transition for 5 years, and on your 5th year realize, what, I need to do some more enemas. I think that would benefit me, or I need to do some more lemons in my enemas. Or you could get 10 years in and be like, okay, let me back up a little bit and not do as many. But what I will tell you is from personal experience and watching others, I mean, the most there's people that have done 3 enemas back, kind of. I know guys have done enemas, back to back to back, or done 3 enemas a day, or sometimes maybe even more. When I first got into the diet and I started getting into it, I might have did it, a couple enemas a day for a minute. Then it was back down to 1, and then I went periods where it was every other day, and I've went periods where I didn't do them for a couple weeks just for experimentation purposes to see what happened, because everybody says, well, you get addicted to them, you can't go to the bathroom without them, and that wasn't my experience. I was fine without it, but I just view it as just a hygiene. It's just like a general hygiene kind of thing. That's not really that big a deal. It's just some hygiene. You brush your teeth, do an enema, if you brush your teeth, because that's a whole other topic of discussion that you can get into in terms of what is a good hygiene. So to answer your question, like I said, is the furthest I would say is you wouldn't go over 3 times a day, but every other day is sort of a kind of a baseline for a lot of folks, and so you just work through it. What I would say is, when you're fasting, before, during, and after the fast, you want to be do 1 every day, and that kind of gives you a good read on what's going on. But again, there's certain circumstances with mainly with people that have a compromised endocrine system. Those are times where I will tell people to kind of not do as many enemas while they're trying to regenerate some of their endocrine glands and stuff, and that's when you can maybe get it a little bit more herbal with your approach with that kind of thing. But so that's kind of where it's at. There's definitely people that do it every day, that have done it every day for years. Some folks that do it less than that, and my thing is just, it's a good question, because you're interested in, like, okay, how often should you do it. So like anything else, I would say kind of use your intuition on it. It's like we have to have the intellect to know that it's important to do it because of what we're eating. I mean, if we've been fruitarians for years and we hadn't been eating any kind of mucus, and there's nothing slimy, and we've been detoxing, then we can start talking about the transition away from them and that kind of thing. But as long as we're eating unnatural foods, and we're eliminating the residue of unnatural foods, then something that's slightly unnatural is it made sense to me to incorporate it, in something that, where the same people that'll look at us and say, oh, you're doing lemon juice enemas, that's crazy. They're the same people that'll go get a triple bypass surgery, or go do chemo so-called therapy, or radiation so-called therapy. Yet they'll look at us like we're insane, when there's people right now that's using these things, that have been diagnosed with these words, that are getting over those words, that are eliminating the residues associated with these cuss words. That's the real cuss words, diseases, all of those. I'm gonna treat those like cuss words, where I won't even say them, because that's not helping anything. You can. There's certain symptoms associated with them, so that can be helpful if you're just starting out trying to figure out the best protocol for yourself and approach. But overall, they're not something to be worn like a badge of honor. It's like like Dr. Morris says, we got to get rid of this crazy concept of diseases. And I agree. So
yeah. I was just gonna say, with my experience with the enemas, I kind of go by my intuition. I'd agree with everything that you said. And one thing that's interesting that I found is sometimes when I'm not doing enemas, let's say it's like a 2 week period or something where I'm not doing them.
Mm.
Often that's actually the time where I should be doing them. Like I'll do an enema and then I'll be like, oh wow, I wish I had been doing them the past few days. Like sometimes when you feel like, oh, I don't really need one right now and I don't want to do one, that's like when you do need one because you are starting to
Right.
sink back. It's like it's not even the eating, it's like physiologically constipation. We're used to being built up. And so it's like, no, I don't really want to release right now. I'm holding on to it for now. Like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's like,
Right.
let it go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we got another question from this one was posted on mucusfreelife.com with the live feed, and this is Denise. Hope I say that correctly. Danessa, and says spent 1 year on the Mucusless diet, unsupplemented, and felt very good. But at the end, something was missing and had my urine tested for methylmalonic acid and creatine ratio in order to know B12 status, and the result was high, which indicates bad B12 utilization regardless of blood count and range. There are analogs. Anyways, I supplemented after that and corrected it in a month with uh, the supplement. And what is your view on B12 supplementation from the Mucusless diet perspective? Do you think over time the body will totally heal and reduce it in the gut as our environment and oxidative stress levels are not the same than the golden age? Maybe it is not achievable by my body without any help. What do you think and do yourself in this regard? Thanks. Okay, so this is the great B12 debate, and I wrote a you can actually, if you on the website, if you do a search for B12, there's a article that I wrote called the B12 myth, and it's also in Spira Speaks book. But basically what I do is I kind of look at the history of the theory, and based on the history of the theory, because I don't buy a lot of the interpretations of biochemistry that have come down. And the reason is, when I go back and I look at these original theories, when I look at theories that were developed, your protein theory, Mulder and Francois Magenti, and you look at the early pioneers of the modern day nutrition theories. One, humans were around thousands of years, way before these medieval level theories. These theories that, in my opinion, would basically be like we will be able to categorize them with some of the medieval logic that, where you what's that Monty Python sketch where they say if if you throw this woman into the lake and she floats, then she's made of wood, and if she's made of wood, then she'll burn. Like this crazy backward logic that doesn't make sense. And because most of the nutrition theories are based on and created by people that were pus and mucus eaters and were meat eaters, and they had a huge superiority complex where they thought that they were gods and goddesses of the world, especially gods, because this was a very male-dominated, European kind of societies, and so a lot of the science has kind of come out of that tradition, and so they weren't considering the many peoples of the world that have lived plant-based lifestyles much longer than humans have been eating the amount of meat that was being eaten in Europe. And even then, it's hard for us to even compare to today's standards, because they still ate more vegetables, especially the peasantry. You know, they still ate whatever they could grow and what they could kind of preserve in the winter months and stuff that were plant-based. But depending on where you are, who you're talking about, you know, you got the potato famines and everything else going on. So as far as the B12 thing, we tend to relate that to or at least I tend to relate that to a weak adrenals, and that's also a kind of a Dr. Morris understanding, which you don't know him. He's kind of somebody that's been dealing with mucus-free healing for years and years, for almost 40 years, and you know, pretty much healed at almost every form of disease, if you want to use that word. But what I see is anytime you do something that's like a chemical isolate, you know, you're taking some kind of quick fix supplement, it might stimulate you. Like you say, the vitality of the men. You know, this concept of you kind of, because you could also take cocaine, and you go and I bet you wake up. You know, I bet you get energized, and I bet you feel pretty good for a minute. You know, you do a little, you know, get a coca leaf, and then go out, you know, and you know, put that in between your don't really do that. I'm being facetious. What I'm saying is, like, that's the way we look at these things, the consciousness, where we will take these little vitamins and stimulants and stuff, and some of it is psychosomatic, I think, where you just it's like it's just a mind thing where you take a certain thing and it's like, oh, because I've talked to a lot of people that had been diagnosed with B12, they still got shots or they took the supplements, B12 levels didn't go up, and they didn't feel any better. Well, because they really didn't deal with the cause. There's other people that can take some of those supplements and it sort of evens them out, but it still doesn't heal. You know, it doesn't heal the foundation. What can be challenging for us is because we're so used to the quick fix mentality of, okay, I got an organ that's inflamed, cut it out, and then I take pills for a couple days, some pain medicine for a couple days, then I'm back to work next week. We're used to that. So when you start talking to somebody about real healing and what that takes, that might take a couple years, it might take more than a couple years of serious, dedicated, systematic transition with fasting and, you know, just that level of intensity. And then that's why so many people get on this path, and then they dedicate their life to healing themselves, you know, on these deeper levels, on the not only the physical but the emotional and the spiritual, because all of that stuff comes up. In order to heal yourself deeper and deeper, you also have to deal with these other issues, and some of those other issues people weren't really prepared for. Like they didn't sign up for that. They were like, well, I wanted to get physically well, but they didn't realize that they were going to have to go through some of the deep, dark, you know, mental and sort of emotional things that the healing process brings up. So, you know, so as far as B12, I mean, my thing is, you know, I don't do it, and you know, we will there. There was, I would say, there was one time during my transition, there's times when I experiment with things just so I will know. It's kind of like Eric, where Eric, tried to give himself malaria, you know, and stuff. You know, Eric did a 2-year-long fruit fast, and then a couple weeks after it ate some meat to do the bloodletting test. So I'm not going that extreme, but I'll say that there was a period where I was like, okay, well, let me take this and see what happens, and let me see if what this does, and it didn't do nothing. It didn't do nothing for me, and I actually went through periods where I was You know, I was doing, so did some blood tests, and I was just, because I was like, I want to, you know, a lot of that stuff I don't, you know, I'm that's for future books. You know, those are I got to have something to write about when I'm, you know, when I'm like in my 50s and 60s. You know, I gotta save something, you know, to talk about later. So I have that kind of content, you know, and there's some of this real deep, some deep stuff that I went through. You know, I'll be talking about that when the time is right. But yeah, just is anything like that. That whole vitamin world, all that kind of stuff. That's just not where it's at as far as we're concerned. You know, when you get the body healed and you take it as deep as you really need to take it, then, you know, that's where it's at. So the question is, you know, who's prepared to, you know, put themselves on the you know, on nature's operating table like that. You know, because it's a different. You really have to change your way of thinking and your paradigm for a more long-term process, because it's not a quick fix. That whole quick fix mentality of you can take something and you're healed. You can take a herb and you're healed, or you take a vitamin and you're healed. That's all coming from this whole mentality, you know, that's fueled by capitalism and the, you know, the drug companies and you know, we're just, because it's so readily available to take these chemical concoctions and have our symptoms changed, you know, so that in most cases suppressed, or something that's actually helping us cleanse, destroy, you know, and if you antibiotics and all that kind of stuff. And so, like I said, there's a place for you know, emergency rooms and all that kind of stuff. It's all well and good, but when you start talking about chronic illness, it is a issue where you're either going to try to really, you know, get serious about healing yourself and really dig deep into what you have to do to heal, or, you know, you kind of go along that other path. And there's people, you know, and I've worked with people and seen people that have you know, practiced the diets and done stuff. Some of the people that work with Dr. Morris and things, you know, but they will do the protocol, but they'll actually keep going to the doctor just to get the blood test, just so they can see. And then as they get healed, the doctor is like dumbfounded, like, what happened? What have you been doing? Your blood it's all of a sudden it's fine, and you stop taking your pills and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, well, you know, I changed my diet, and I fasted, and I healed. And then they will never say that that's what healed you. I mean, it could be right in their face. They saw them, tested them every day, and they still will never say, oh, okay, wow, maybe that's something that I should check into. Maybe there's something to what you did. You know, they're too brainwashed to you know, to consider that. You know, which is sad.
Yeah, I have something to add on that too. You know, with the B12 piece, is like, you never find somebody who takes B12 and solves the problem, and they're like, oh, I took B12, it did what it was supposed to, I haven't had to take it in 5 years, I'm fine. It's never like that. It's like, oh, I take B12 now every 2 months and I'm okay. You know,
Right.
You're talking about what you're talking about, man. It's like that drug mentality. And so you have to look at it from the paradigm of true healing. And, you know, so Denise or Danessa, like, what could be helpful as well is to know more about the transition within that year. I'm going on my 3rd year on the Mucusless diet, and I've been vegan for like 6 years or whatever, and I haven't come to that point yet where it's like I have an issue where I might need B12. But I haven't gotten into the extreme like fruit dieting and such like that. You know, but I've done my stuff. I've done my fast, my like 1 month long fruit fast and stuff like that, and short fast. And basically, is like if you expose some weaker points like Spira, you said endocrine system and such, when those things get exposed, it's time now to look at true healing. And the B12 is really a misguided concept that can take your thoughts down all the wrong patterns in terms of real healing. And the most important thing here is, like, this society is not set up for you to heal yourself. It doesn't care about, like, if you don't feel good and you have to call in for work. Society doesn't care about if you're trying to get mucusless and you're dealing with the B12 question. Like, society doesn't care about that. So at every angle, society's going to tell you to take something, take something, take something. And you know, it's just a temporary fix. Like, you might take B12 and feel better for a few weeks, and maybe that's the kick that you need to start doing some other research, you know. So it's like, it's not all over if you took B12 or whatever. It's just, it's not going to solve the problem. So you're still going to have to go down those same channels of Dr. Morse and maybe do consultation with Spira or something like that, and try to really get your head around, like, what's going on in your endocrine system and such. You know, so that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I just actually just looked up the article here that I wrote, exploring the B12 myth, and so I actually posted the link down at the bottom of the live broadcast on Mucus-free Life. And so you can kind of check it out. But I started out saying, whenever we are provoked by the erroneous concepts that we have been programmed to respect since childhood, we must have courage in the unknown. Simple logic will always save the day. I know plenty of people who have suffered and died from disease that were pus and mucus eaters, but I do not know anybody who died eating only fruits and green leaf vegetables, mucusless foods. Since we already know what is at the end of the mucus path, it makes sense to explore the unknown. And then I just get into the whole, like, or I do an analysis of the history, because the B12 theory comes out of torturing dogs. I mean, that's where the chemists that were dealing with this, they were basically torturing dogs, trying to make them anemic, and then feeding them different foods to see what would get them, you know, sort of what would get them to stop having that type of elimination. And so that they would start feeding it liver and all this kind of stuff, and they would say, oh wow, it got high, it's better now, you know. It's like, you know, and then these are the I mean, look up the history of the protein theory, look up the history of B12 theory, look up you know, first you notice that these things are not that old. They're just these, like, brand new theories that are very untested and rarely challenged and questioned. And second, that most of them came out of some either a really stupid circumstance or something sadistic, where they were, you know, protein theory comes out of torturing dogs, you know, starving dogs, and then you know, giving one dog water and the other dog water with some kind of some kind of chemical supplement, and saying that the dog that died because he had only water died because it didn't get this nitrogenous compound that was in the other dog's dish. That's the foundation. That's a protein theory. That's the foundation of it. Why don't they teach that in elementary school? I talk to doctors that don't, you know, they don't know the history of that theory. They just, well, you know, they'll try to break the chemistry down or the whole concept. We're basically saying, look, in terms of, I mean, there's a difference between using a term to identify a certain chemical element or a certain chemical compound that can be sort of broken down, and that's chemistry. But that chemistry doesn't have anything to do with metabolism insofar as their interpretation of metabolism is again based on pus eating, based on mucus eating. So it becomes almost a fool's errand to try and merge those two theories, and that's what some of the folks try to do in the plant-based thing, where they're trying to reach back and take these old meat-eating based nutritional concepts and try to make them make sense with fruit eating or fruit and vegetable eating. And to me, that's not even where we should be trying to put our time and energy. If anything, if we get to a day where somebody picks something up and they have, instead of nutritional facts written on a box, instead of saying nutritional facts, they have something that says elimination facts, elimination tendencies. Like what how well would this eliminate? How well would this create a mucus broom in the body? And so that's where that is. And so another topic that I get a lot of questions about that I wanted to maybe say a few words on was Dr. Sebi's food list. And so question that I get quite often is why are there certain foods on your mucus-forming foods list that are also on Dr. Sebi's electric foods list? And there's a few issues with this. One issue is that there's the list that goes around, and I've asked people, and maybe if there's anybody watching or somebody that's really into Dr. Sebi's work, you could enlighten us. But there's a couple different websites I've seen that sort of offers what they consider to be Sebi's food list, and they're totally different. There's one that's they have stuff that they've like updated it where they've crossed things out and said, okay, this is no longer good to eat, and and this kind of stuff. And then there's the list that people say used to come with if you bought some of Sebi's merchandise, it would come in there. So what I'm gonna do is let's see, I got the list here. So I don't know, I'll just take a quick look and basically just identify foods that we would consider to be mucus forming. And because Sebi deals with this concept of the electric foods, and you can get into the whole the degree to which foods that have this kind of electrical charge, what does that do within the body. But the one thing that I will say with Sebi is Sebi was initially inspired by the Mucusless Diet Healing System and Professor Arnold Ehret. And I know he studied a couple other people, but Ehret was the foundation of a lot of his philosophies early on and theories. However, he didn't necessarily go as far as Ehret in terms of really adopting the mucus-forming foods. He kind of came up with his own foods that he was going to say, well, these are good to eat and these aren't good to eat. So with this, okay, you got your fruits and stuff, and that's cool. I don't know about that. Let's see. Of course, now you get down here. This is where we're gonna have our disagreements now, because Mucusless diet, avocados, very fat forming or fatty so-called fruit. And although you can use it on the transition, like we always say, it's not something that you are gonna want to act like plan on eating for the rest of your life on a Mucusless diet path, and especially not with the frequency and in the amount that a lot of people end up getting into. And there's a reason why that happens, because it's very addictive. So that's one thing on here. Uh, nuts, you know, the only way that you should eat nuts is with a bunch of dried fruit, raisins, but they're still mucus forming. Then of course they get into the sprouted concept, and we don't necessarily, whether you sprout it or you eat it roasted or whatever, still mucus forming, you know. And so it's, again, there's ways to eat it that can be good for the transition, but it's, you don't want to look at it like it's something that you want to eat, you know, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And you don't want to be eating that stuff and then start going through eliminations and blowing your nose and getting sick and wondering, well, why I'm not eating anything mucus forming? Why is that? Well, understand those things are mucus forming. You know, just because they're on a list of somebody that you really, that you really respect, doesn't mean that everything on there is going to be, is going to be right in line with everything. And that goes for my list. It comes down to physiologically. For me, it's about taking things away. It's like, where you could look at stuff on my list and be like, oh man, there's some stuff on there that I know my body doesn't do well with. And I would say, great, don't eat those things. Nobody's saying you have to eat those things. And nobody's saying that they're necessarily healthy, because we don't really talk like that. We say, in a lot of people, fundamentally, they don't degrade and cause mucus in the system, and they eliminate well for most people. But it's different, for a lot of people. And then with our thing, we get into some other areas in terms of the actual systematic ways to eat. Then we get into the grains, and here again, we use grains to transition, but we don't claim that they're mucus-free. They're not. They're mucus-forming. Any type of weather, and it doesn't matter if you can use wheat, which isn't on here. That's probably like a no-no, like where wheat is considered way worse than some of these other things. That would be different from where we are, where we don't. For us, wheat and quinoa, relatively the same. Wheat and comet Kamalt, whatever, is fairly the same. Grain is a grain. Now, the one grain that you would want to avoid at all costs would be rice. White, brown, or black, doesn't matter. And so, and as that rice isn't really something that I recommend on the transition, although some people use it. And that's cool, if you know what you're doing and you're combining it with some other mucus-free things and the raw salads and all that, cool. Because we don't get hardcore like that on people, where we're saying, oh, if you don't eat mucus-free like this, then you're out of the club. Blah, like I see with some of these people that are in some of these, like the raw, somebody that's in these raw food groups, and as soon as if they even mention the word cooked, or if they reveal that they had a cooked meal, oh, you're out the group. We kick you out immediately. You're not wanted here. I mean, we don't even have nowhere near that vibe. We just have aspirations that exceed most everybody else in all of those other camps that I've ever seen. Where we're trying to get and in our vision of where we can get physiologically goes way beyond all of these other camps. Yet we're rational and reasonable about how long it might take to get there. We're not trying to get there next year. We're not trying to get there in 2 years. This is a lifestyle. We're not preoccupied with how long it's going to take. We get into the process, get into the transition, and enjoy the journey. But all these, getting real wrapped up in these little, there's certain things that, and that's the other with the hybrid concept, which I know, Sebi is real into. I mean, obviously, you want to find the best fruit. If it all comes down to where do you live, what can you afford, and I think some of that comes down to karma, in terms of, we end up where we end up, and we got to do the best we can do where we're at. We don't got a lot of money, and you're not in the greatest space. That still doesn't mean that you just have a free pass to go to McDonald's. You gotta find ways within the context of your life to transition. So maybe you can't get the organic stuff, but you can at least go and get some fruits, If you got to get canned stuff, you can do that. Again, that would be heresy for raw food people. But I'm reasonable, and I know. As a street musician, I mean, I interact with homeless people. As I talk to them, I know about that side of the tracks. People that don't have a lot of money, people on food stamps. I was on food stamps for a minute. So I mean, so this thing, there really is no excuse, because everybody's got an excuse. People that have a ton of money, that are rich, they got excuses like, oh, well, I'm just too addicted, or, oh, I don't think I could give up my cheese, and I love my wine. And they got excuses. Homeless folks I talk to, they got excuses. It's like, well, I'm like, this thing is not about excuses. This thing is about, sometimes you have to be intelligent, sometimes you have to be creative, and you got to find a way to make this thing work within the context of your life. Because this ain't, all that other stuff, the money and all that, all that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because this is your body, it's your life, and you're responsible for it. You're responsible for the laws. So you have to, kind of deal with this thing, and our main message is transition. So even you could be using all this stuff on this page, but if you are transitioning toward a more mucus-free existence, then you want to know what things on here really do create mucus, so that you can be trying to transition away from them. So and not feel like, okay, well, I'm going to eat like this the rest of my life, and that kind of thing. Let's keep going here. So we got our green, so that's going to be all good. I don't know what the beef is with spinach. It says use sparingly, and then I think on that newer list I found, I think they scrapped spinach. They basically said don't use it. So I don't really know what the deal is there, unless it's, I know there was those times where they were having the E. coli or something was in spinach, but I don't know why that's. I'd have to do research, or somebody had to tell us. Let's see, let's go through, and then of course we're not super heavy into the teas and then the herb kind of thing here. I mean, this is all stuff.
Now, what about the mushrooms and the like? What about the roots, like the jicama and stuff like that?
Okay.
I don't know why it says like animal, plant like animal. Oh, it's because they're saying it's like alive like an animal.
Oh, okay, yeah. Where, on the root?
Like a creature. No, the mushroom is like a creature.
Oh, plant-like animal.
Right.
That is kind of strange. Yeah. Well.
That's a good reason, I guess, not to eat it, huh? It's like.
Yeah, right? Yeah, my thing with mushrooms is I'm not a fan. So I've never used them on the transition. I don't really tell people to use them. I know people that do. I think eating a few up, like if they're sort of cut up and they're put in the combination salad, all right. But we're trying to get away from fungus. We're trying to get away from those kind of things. Right. The mushroom is a good example of, give it the child test. Take raw mushrooms, don't cook them, don't put anything on them. Put them in a bowl, and then put them on a table next to some really ripe red strawberries or black grapes, or blackberries or something, and bring the kids in and see what they go for. Do the kids grab the bowl of mushrooms and start eating mushrooms, or do they grab the strawberries? So it's just not something that we're supposed to be dealing with. It's just not a human food as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. And as you get cleaner, they really make you sick. Like, I used to eat them years ago just as a vegan, and I was just fine, but once I started cleaning my gut up, it's like I had some mushrooms one time on the transition, and I got so sick, man, it just made me feel so nauseous.
Right.
And I've heard some other people say the same thing,
All right. Let's see. So that's that. The roots. Onions and he doesn't have a real exhaustive list of roots, which I'm surprised just with the whole herb. I don't know what his thoughts are on like horseradish and garlic. I don't know. Maybe I've heard that he looks at them as poisons, but I'm not sure. Mild flavors, pungent, salty. So this is sea vegetable things, and it's all kind of just basic standard. I mean, we don't get to with condiments. We just kind of say you just stay away from salt in general. I mean, that's just our recommendation because it's fairly addictive, and it's not like this over here. We would say you don't even really need to go here. Pure sea salt. You just don't have to do that. You can deal. I mean, if you're going to do something, deal with some kelp or dulse or something like that. Get some dulse flakes. Some kind of non-salt seasoning or something like that. But it's the salt thing is just really. I think it's just antagonistic chemistry for the body. It doesn't absorb properly and eliminates weird. And one thing about salt that I say with the long-term transition is if I go long periods of time without having anything that has salt in it, like if I'm in a fruit period or something like that, then my eliminations, like the mucus, or if for some reason I were to taste my own tears, it's not salty. But back in the day, or when I'm eating salt, those eliminations always taste a little salty. And then back in the day, it used to be chronically salty, no matter what I was eating, because I was starting the process of elimination. So all the salt, the mucus and stuff would come out in my mouth would just be pure salty. So the sweet flavors, not a fan of agave syrup. That's kind of on the no-no list for a lot of folks these days. The date stuff, date sugar, maple, and and I know that a lot of the hardcore vegans are against the honey piece, but Eric talks about honey. I'd used honey for
now. What's with the agave? I never really used it, but I know people say don't use it.
Yeah, it's processed. It's a processed. It's just a kind of a processed thing. We say from cactus, and it's just concentrated. I mean, it's probably with any of these kind of things. It's not the end of the world. It's not the kind of thing again that there's almost levels of. I got to come up with a concept or word for this because it's kind of like these different diet communities tend to be defined by what they consider, what they get really excited about, and really where the things that they're really strong on. Like, don't do this, don't eat this, don't touch hybrid fruits and vegetables, like where that, or don't eat any cooked foods. It's like these different communities are basically they're defined on what not to do more so than what to do. In most cases.
Right.
And they try to project that onto us, and it's like we only have a handful of a couple things that we say, like, that we just strongly recommend to avoid and stay away from. Because I'm not telling you never have anything with salt in it or you don't practice the diet. I'm just saying, just some wisdom. Like, it's not something that you really want to deal with. It's not something that you really need to, and so it would be a good idea not to. It's like there's certain things that you can get into that's just going to be an easier transition than the salt. And that's just passed down from people that have practiced the diet for years, that have kind of gone through that and maybe have gone through a salt binge or whatever, and then said, like, just stay away from it. Just don't even go there. Like Brother Air said, with the avocado, just why would I want to eat a fruit that was eating French fries. You know, just don't go there if you're not already addicted to it. And if you are, then just recognize it and transition. Sooner or later, you're gonna be blowing your nose and you're gonna have a fever so fast. And when you come up out of that cleanse and that fast, you do your enemas and you do what you're supposed to do in that cleanse. Then don't go back to the avocado. You know what I mean? That's one tactic I used a lot over the years, where I would be like, okay, I'm addicted to this certain thing, I'm eating it. I'm not gonna feel guilty about it. I'm gonna just eat it. But I know sooner or later I'm gonna get sick, you know, because this is gonna make me sick. If nothing else makes me sick, eating this will. This mucus forming. And when it comes around, then I always take advantage of those times and do, you know, I end up turning up what somebody else might just do a week-long fast, I'll turn into a couple months or something, and really take advantage of those periods. And then when I come up off of that period, I'm not going back to none of that food that I was maybe into at the time, you know. And so let's see here, this last, we spent a lot of time on this. Electric foods or alkaline foods just help the body to heal and nourish itself, and that's basically the problem that we have with these foods that we consider to be very mucus forming. Garbanzo bean, another thing, just beans, you know, and chickpeas, mucus forming. It's not, you know, not alkaline. It can be used on the transition, but these are not things that from a mucusless diet standpoint, you want to use if you're dealing with chronic illness. You use to transition for a little bit, but when it's time to really heal, then you're not doing these things. And I heard somebody that did work with Dr. Sebi closely and actually went out to his retreat for a couple weeks. They were saying that he had people eating grains and stuff that were like folks on cancer and stuff were kind of dealing with the grains and eating these big meals and stuff, and that kind of blew me away, because I figured, well, at least he would, maybe if he was having them at the retreat and they were going through something like that, he would be fasting them, and obviously he's going to deal with the herbs with them, but we kind of get him into some good fruit down there in Honduras and that kind of thing. But that just kind of surprised me that wheat piece was involved like that. But let's see, electric. So you can, so again, hybrid foods. You could check these out. This is kind of just like this overall philosophy of what to use, what's good, what's not as good. And it kind of gets into this minutia a little bit of because again, there's, with the real intense focus on like the hybrid stuff, the seedless things, and it's like, again, if I go out into the hood talking to some brothers and sisters, or I go out someplace in any kind of low income place where folks, even if you have money, and you go, like, you can't just walk into Whole Foods and go get some grapes that have seeds in them. So, yes, right. That would be the best. That would be great. We need to work toward that as a human species. There's a lot that we need to do as consciousness rises. But at the same time, we have to deal with what we got and where we're at now. And since we're not obsessed with nutrition and we're focused on elimination, you eat some store-bought conventional fruit, you wash them real good, and that's all you can afford, that's all that's around you, I'd rather you eat that than to go to McDonald's. Because the way some people frame it, it's almost as if, like, well, if you don't eat fruit with seeds and you don't eat this and you don't do this, then you're not doing good. You're danger, be scared. And we're just saying, just transition. And again, and with our, when we talk about avoid avocados or avoid salt or maybe stay away from that, it's just guidelines. It's not law. We're not putting down some kind of law like don't do this, and that's just the vibe I get from from a lot of those some of the within some of those communities, just with the where they have this real hard line about some of these things. And like I said, for me, it's just about guidelines and best practices, and then having the vision of where you want to go, the goal of what you're trying to get to.
Yeah, definitely. It's like we're using some of these foods just to empty ourselves out, totally to clean yourself. But you don't know, like if you just go down that route, like you said, maybe you're like in a poorer neighborhood, you might use that corner store fruit or something like that to really clean yourself fast. And then 5 years down the road, when you're actually clean and ready to absorb something, like maybe some organic fruit will come around, you know what I mean? And you'll just be ready. But at this point, most people are not ready to even absorb something. So it's just like, like we just got to clean ourselves out first. And I'd rather clean myself out with some seedless grapes than clean myself out with a cheeseburger. It's not happening.
Right, which is impossible.
Right.
So all right. So next on the list was salt. I already sort of talked about it, so I'm not gonna get into it. I mean, basically, Brother Air just was like, look, just don't mess with salt. Like, just don't get in the habit of putting it on stuff, using it to cook. Just get you some non-salt kind of seasoning or something, and just deal with that. And it made sense to me, that if I used certain canned items, like sometimes I would make the tomato sauce, and I might throw a can of some like some kind of tomato, the crushed tomatoes or tomato sauce or something like that, but then combine it with fresh tomatoes and make a sauce. Then there might be salt in whatever I used, that was canned. But in terms of putting it in something, that's not where it's at.
Right. And I mean, even in mainstream society, everybody's saying, avoid the salt or be careful with the salt. It's like this caution thing, and I mean, I haven't studied it in depth, but I haven't seen nobody who was like, add salt to your diet and it's like healthy. Like a lot of the stuff that you see on mainstream society is like lower or limit the salt in your diet. And like I think with my mother, but I've known some other older folks who actually took salt out of their diet and like their migraines went away and stuff like that. And personally, it does give me headaches. Like if I'm somewhere where I eat something salty, it could potentially give me a headache, because it just dehydrates you so fast.
It stops your elimination in a real bad way. And,
right.
Dehydrating.
And if somebody really needed it, you would see people on the forums and stuff like that, like, oh, I couldn't get out of bed and then I had some salt and everything was great again. Like, nobody is saying that.
I don't know. Be careful, because then you find folks
that
talking. There's people that sound like that to me when they start talking about like the saltwater flushes and stuff. Where they're like, okay, I drank I got out of bed and I drank a gallon of the salt water and it was like a laxative and that kind of thing. So and I'm not a fan of that. I just but like I said again, I'm not here to be Mr. Hardline. It's just there's certain things that we just tend to not. We deal with the lemon enemas, and then that's going to be controversial to some people. And the same people that say, well, that's not natural, then they want to do saltwater flushes, which we just don't deal with like that. We're just like that. That's not the way to go. If you want to do a lemon juice flush, drink that same amount, like whatever you were supposed to put in the water, like make that a gallon of lemon juice and drink that. I've done stuff like that, you know, back. And so drink, you know, juice you, like let's get aggressive. If we want to be aggressive and do all these things, then let's do it in the direction of some fruit juice or something. Let's you know,
right.
juice a lemon with the rind and all, and drink that. You know, like you know, drink a big glass of that and see what happens. So yeah, so we will leave that there. The next question was I'll combine the next two, smoothies and frozen fruit. Somebody at some point had asked about frozen fruit, I think on the forum, and then someone was asking about smoothies as well. So here's my thing with smoothies. I'm not a huge fan of them. I'm not a fan of the extended use of them. A lot of the people that I know, like I've had to help people that had been on that sort of did the smoothies and probiotic combination, and they weren't digesting well anymore, and so I had to basically kind of get them away from the smoothies and say, well, either drink juice, make some juice and drink the juice, or eat the thing whole. But that smoothie level basically does what your body would do, and if you, like, say you take some spinach and you eat it raw, or some celery, your digestive system has to work harder to process that cellulose, but at the same time, the nature of those greens are still blood cleansers and cleansing, and so and it cleanses as the body is working on it, trying to deal with it. If you just drink it in a smoothie sort of thing, you have this kind of mushed up cellulose that doesn't necessarily eliminate well, and so your body's trying to process this like this sort of sludge, and it's not mucus forming, but it's still it's sort of a sludgy consistency that, and the comparison that I make to Eric's work is where he basically said avoid soups. And the reason that you avoid soups is because you have water mixed with vegetables or some kind of pureed whatever, and so you have this conglomerate that doesn't necessarily eliminate real well. And with the smoothies, I kind of noticed that where and again, I'm not doing any kind of hard line or anything. I'm basically saying that to me, it's better to either deal with both of those extremes. You know, you either got your juice where you take the cellulose out so your body can really deal with it, eat the real easy, or you got your the whole version of it, which is going to really slow down whatever elimination you're working on, but there's also some cleansing properties to it. Now, with all that said, there is a level where I would get into. I really never did. I never got into green smoothies much at all. But if I got into fruit smoothies, there's a couple times when I did really long-term juice fasts that I don't recommend anybody do. I don't promote long-term fasting, but I've done some. But instead of just breaking, fasting on juice for 6 months and then just breaking it one day, I spent 2 months transitioning back into cooked food, or not cooked foods, but back into whole foods. And so there was periods of time where the line between was it fasting or was it eating was kind of skewed. And so there was periods where I was kind of into some smoothies kind of stuff. I was juicing oranges and kind of including a lot more of the pulp at certain periods, but I was just getting more and more to the point where what I was doing was kind of thicker. It was thicker and thicker, and then eventually I was eating, where I might juice a bunch of oranges, and I might eat one orange. I might suck on it and not totally just eat it down, but sort of suck on that orange and then drink a bunch of orange juice down. And how do you, and how do you categorize that? I mean, that's the problem, where people want to try to categorize everything real strict. And they say, well, that's not fasting, or this is this, and this is that. And I'm saying, like, this is it. Just just think transitionally, and you don't have to deal with these categories, because the categories are gonna put you in a box. Because maybe you need to eat one orange and then drink a bunch of orange juice after it. I mean, you don't, you don't have to, you don't have to put yourself in those boxes. Sometimes we try to do things so that we can order the process, so we can order ourselves in a transition. But at the same time, when you do that kind of thing, you don't want to be so much in your head and be so concerned about, like obsessed with, okay, I'm gonna do this and I do that. Like for me, it just, I didn't do it like that. I just sort of, I had the overall concept. Okay, I'm gonna spend as long as I can transitioning back into solid food. So then it was more of a fun thing, where it was like, okay, well, how incrementally can I transit? It became like a personal, it's kind of a personal competition with myself, or something, like a challenge. Like, okay, what can I do today that will be brilliant and transitional? Like, how can what would just make so much sense with where I'm at, that I can, just order this a certain way. And sometimes you try stuff and you be like, okay, that didn't work too good. And then other times you be like, okay, well, that works. And that's cool. And that's outside the box. It doesn't fit in no type of, the only thing it fits in is transition methodology. But outside of that, it's kind of, because again, that's what I'm saying. There's periods of, well, am I eating or I'm not eating? It's like, well, for me, eating is when I'm not dealing with any of those, like the smoothies or anything like that. I'm eating now, so I'm having whole meals of fruit and whole meal. It's, if I'm having, like, in that process, if I eat a handful of grapes and then drink a bunch of grape juice, what is that? Like, it's like, well, you're eating. It was like, well, no, yeah, like, I'm not saying I was fasting at that point, but I was transitioning back into full-fledged solid foods, and the fruit is a lot, eating the fruit, a little bit of fruit is a lot different than when you started eating the salads. It took me a long time to get to salads. So I was dealing with, the sort of the fruit smoothie levels, and the fruit, eat a bite of fruit and drink juice, and I was dealing with that stuff for a long period of time, because I knew as soon as I started getting into vegetables, the vegetables were going to take me into full-fledged eating fairly quickly. It wasn't like I didn't, and those are things that I work on more now to extend the vegetable periods. But for me, and just my own personal physiology, those vegetable periods aren't, and like the vegetable juices and that kind of juice feasting thing just isn't real comfortable for me, because I don't really personally like green juices. When I drink green juices, I don't really enjoy them. I'm drinking them because I know that they're going to help cleanse a certain thing, or they're going to help do something physiologically. But I don't enjoy them like I enjoy drinking grape juice, fresh grape juice. I mean, it's not even. I mean, it's not even in the same room. So, so that's my thing on the smoothies. For me, it was a very specific. It had a very specific task, and it was a transitional task to get me from doing this fairly long juice fast into where I was eating, and I didn't want any big change, or like any big, like, okay, wow, that messed me up. So I just wanted to be real smooth with it. But outside of that, I'm just not a big fan of just like the everyday smoothie thing. Like a lot of people like to do the banana smoothies and all this kind of stuff, and you're just not really giving your intestines something to work on. It's kind of like you're giving it something heavy and thick to try and deal with, but you're not giving it to it in its sort of in its natural kind of shape. And even if you do the whole somebody posted up the Fletcherism post in there. You know, even if you're chewing your whatever you're eating 1,000,000 times, your saliva is already starting to break stuff down. So that's a totally different situation than using a blender and then just drinking it down. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's to me is not the greatest thing in the world, but I would rather see somebody do that than a lot of other things. But you know, it's just a matter of elimination, and you know, trying to go for the thing that's going to help, you know, help aid elimination and aid, you know, good, you know, having the intestines working, you know, and the pancreas working, and you know, the whole digestive system really like working the way it should.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I guess with me, it's like there was maybe like a 2 or 3 week period where I was getting into the smoothies a lot more and stuff, and I found that they just don't digest the way that you would think they would. Um,
Right.
and so, you know, what I've come to is like they're kind of like a treat to me. Like if I
Hmm.
want it, it's like a treat, but it's not. It doesn't really have anything to do with my transition in that way. Um, and yeah, I would agree that the best way to really use them, if anything, is like coming back into a more heavier eating mode. Uh, but they don't, like with my physiology, they don't really take me into a fast very well. They're better to come
No.
off of a fast with, you know.
Right.
'Cause
Right. Right. Yeah.
they don't really break stuff down. They don't really start that squeezing process.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. I agree with that. That's also been my experience. So yeah. So the last question that we have for this section was about coated tongue and what Eric calls the magic mirror. And so to break this down, this is something that you don't want to get too obsessed with it. Some people, it's the kind of, again, the kind of people like these little toys or these little concepts of like, ooh, like, let me do this. This is fun. And they'll get obsessed with looking at their tongue all the time to try to look at how much mucus is on it. And then they'll be wanting to try to fast, like Eric says, don't try to fast the mucus off of your tongue, that kind of thing. What I found is that some of those principles can even be misleading, because you can, depending on what's going on physiologically, you can start a fast and your tongue will actually can clear up immediately. And you'll be like, oh wow, there's no mucus on my tongue. I'm in good shape. No, it's just your whole lymphatic system shifted and your body shifted, and now the body's actually trying to eliminate that stuff. Um, but at the same time, I've had instances where I was fasting and everything, you know, and the tongue might have been coated and mucus all in my mouth, and then I eat a salad or break the fast and get back into a salad, and that kind of cleared everything out and everything, and then everything, nothing was coated anymore, and the mucus was kind of like, it was almost like the mucus was pushed somewhere else. You know, the elimination, the lymphatic system was moving in a different way, and so it wasn't all there. So it's one of those things that is not a science to me. You know, it's not it's something to really kind of obsess over. It's something that's interesting. For me, the main thing to get out of that was just sort of a visualization and understanding that the entire tissue system is connected. So your tongue, you know, we're just a series of tubes, and your tongue is connected to your anus. You know, to be, you know, not to be nasty, but
That's
it's
what it
like
is, right? Right.
the same tissues, and tissue system and lymphatic system that's up here. That when there's mucus that comes out here, that's all connected all the way down, and that's one continuous tube here. And so if you got so that's what Eric's point is. If you got mucus in your mouth, or you eat some fruit and it can be astringent and bring a bunch of mucus out into your mouth to spit out from, release from your mucous membrane, then imagine what the condition is down in the colon, which is the seat of the disease production. Because in order for you to have that kind of experience up here, to have a elimination in your nose and all that kind of stuff, your colon has to be really, really saturated to the point where now your mucus is overflowing. It can't, it's not being filtered through the kidneys, and now it's overflowing, so it's going to come out your nose. With some people, it comes out their skin. With other people, if it doesn't come out, it degrades into acid internally, and then it starts harming organs. And so if this stuff doesn't leave, you're in trouble. The magic mirror is sort of a way to, for me, it was a way to understand the big picture even better. So the main thing I got from it was just understanding that holistic, systemic nature of the body, that it's all connected. My tongue and the mucus there, that's how I can look at my tongue and I can get a sense of of how mucousy my colon is at any given time, because it's all connected. And and so that's mainly his point with that. And when you go through something, your tongue's coated, might be yellow or white or whatever. It could be dark. Now that's really getting into some stuff. I used to take Pepto-Bismol, and it would always make my tongue black. Yeah, if you ever did that. Yeah, Pepto-Bismol was a monster, because basically you're eating all this meat and all these acids, straight acid-forming foods, and your stomach can't really handle it anymore. And so you get this, they call it acid reflux, where think about that. I mean, that's heavy, because I don't get acid reflux eating fruit and stuff unless I'd eaten some mucus and the fruit responds with some mucus, and it still don't really happen. But maybe that's how it could happen. But yeah, I mean, think about that. You're eating this stuff that's so antagonistic to your system that it became normal for this sort of these acids to come back up, and you can get real hot here in your throat, or your chest or your stomach, and just it's just all burning and hot, and so the gas pressure could be uncomfortable. So grab you a couple little chewable. I used to do the chewables, the chewable Pepto-Bismol. And within a couple hours, or if I take it before going to bed, I would have to scrub my tongue, and basically it neutralized this acid, and but it did it in such a way, like it does it in the stomach system, and to the point where the whole system just where the tongue gets black, because it's not like it comes up. It's inside the tongue, and it's like comes out, and it's just this. You get this black tongue thing, and I had to like really scrub my teeth, scrub my tongue to get it off of there, and it'd be the residue. You could taste it and stuff, and so I imagine that. So I wonder now if you do Pepto-Bismol and then you do it like an enema the next day, if everything comes out as black down there too.
Yeah.
Right.
And, but it's
don't try that.
yeah, right, yeah. Don't try that. Yeah. That's not a.
Hey, Spira, I tried that, man. This is what happened.
Right. Like, yeah. Don't do that. So yeah. So it's that kind of thing. I wanted to share. So I think I'm gonna make a video of this and read it like I'm reading. When I was in second grade, I used to read to kindergartners, and this is a picture book that I got. It's called the Children's Health Food Book. This thing is incredible. Like, I actually want to contact this this author Ron Seaborn.
Hmm.
And because I'm pretty, he's had to have read the Mucusless Diet. I mean, it's like there's a few things in here that that I'm not 100% on board with, necessarily, but it's like as far as a children's book, this is, I mean, come on, it's got like the Health Guardians versus the Mucus Gang.
Oh wow. Oh, that's
You
what's
know,
up. Yeah.
the Mucus Gang, and I mean these pictures. I mean it's nailing this stuff. It's like, and it's breaking it down for like children. So it's written in that the child thing. You got then there's all these wanted posters. You got the meat monster.
Oh wow.
You got the sugar demon, and you got the dairy goon. And you got the starch creature.
Mhm.
and then
Is
of
it
course
is it specifically a vegetarian book or?
Mucus Destroyer. Dun dun dun. And yeah. I mean, this is pretty much like I think. I mean, I can't tell exactly what the dude. I mean, it's definitely it's a vegan. This is a vegan book. This ain't just vegetarian. Like this is vegan level, and it really almost implies raw food. So it's almost like a kind of a raw foodist type of vegan kind of thing. There is a part where they say sort of like the sprouted grains. Toward the end, that's one of the things that they'll say to use as that's like the superhero kind of thing. But it says, these meals are full of the let's see. I mean, because it's just basically breaking down just mucus, like that is the foundation, that's the enemy. Then they got these pictures of like fat Americans with their meals eating. Then it's got the social commentary about it. At breakfast we eat bacon, eggs, cheese, French toast, pancakes, white bread, celery, waffles, and other foods. And we also drink milk, coffee, juice, and other beverages. And it's got these pictures. At lunch we eat burgers, double burgers, triple burgers, meat sandwiches, cheese sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, French fries, hot dogs, pizza, pastries, pasta, and other foods. We got this little picture of. At dinner, we eat steak, pork chops, lamb chops, spare ribs, meatloaf, meat byproducts, soul food, spaghetti and meatballs, white rice, pasta, chicken, fish, pies, cakes, ice cream, and other foods. There are more foods for each category, but these examples will serve our purposes. And then they do this. This is brilliant, man. This is actually a brilliant book. Like I said, there's really only a couple things that I would explain in like a follow-up video that I would just be like, well, I would just have to break down transitional discussion. But check this picture out.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I just brought up this thing about him. It says the purpose of this book, as the author states, is to save the children by providing them with knowledge we adults didn't have when we were children. The Children's Health Food book is written for parents and their children so that the knowledge can be shared between them. It teaches children the difference between traditional eating habits and healthy eating habits, and why it is necessary to reevaluate the way we have been taught to eat. The knowledge gives children a chance to grow up healthy by learning which foods are right and which foods are wrong to eat. Even if we as parents are not ready to change our diets, helping our children be more aware of healthy eating will help them when they become adults. So yeah, that's positive, man.
This piece is heavy. It's heavy, and And because I just got it today, and I don't even know if it's in print anymore. I think you can get some used versions of it shipped out to you, and that's what this was used. Let's see, the mucus. They got this picture of folks at a doctor's office in the waiting room, and it says, "The mucus gang is responsible for the ailments children have at an early age, such as colds, flus, fevers, tonsillitis, belly pain, appendicitis, diarrhea, constipation, worms, eczema, skin troubles, coughs, asthma, runny noses, being overweight, and many other ailments. Remember, these problems enter our bodies in the form of candies, cookies, cakes, pies, French fries, potato chips, pizza, hamburgers, eggs, cheese, milk, and many other bad foods we eat." It's like he's just naming all.
Yeah, he's heavy when he gets to naming that stuff, man.
It's on, yeah. Our blood must flow through our bodies like water, not mud.
Right.
You know, the mucus destroyer and his gang pull the skin down and makes it sag and look very wrinkled after years of this type of eating. This is why many adults start to look older than they really are. So, I mean, it's just like, I mean, it's literally almost it's kind of like "Thus speaketh the stomach" for children or something.
Right.
Like it has that type of spirit of like, okay, this is, but it's just nailing this stuff. It's really nailing, these things. I mean, it's got this picture of the mucus destroyer just hugging these kids, just like, "Kid, come here," and kids are suffering. I mean, it just feels like this is something that I would make. Like this is right along the lines of stuff that me and some of my friends had envisioned, wanting to put together stuff for children. That would be, just kind of books and things that would kind of promote the whole mucus piece. And I mean, it's some heavy stuff. So what I think I might do is I might read this, read this whole book and then scan all the pages and kind of have it, make a video of it, and I'll put a link to where people could try to buy it. But I just can't believe I'd never heard of this before, and I think it was Brittany or somebody in one of the groups had posted it up, and I think might have tagged me on it, and I was like, yeah, this is this is right up my alley. So I bought that thing, and this is real colorful. So yeah, so I'm kind of excited about that book. And so yeah. So so you got any other closing thoughts here as we wrap it up?
Man, I'm working on myself right now. I'm in a mode right now where I had gotten into some mucus lean for like the past 4 or 5 days, and it just started tearing me up quick. So I've been feeling kind of down for the count, man, and I'm ready to tomorrow I'm about to kick it back up, man, because that's what my body says it wants. So anybody else out there who's in that mode, like, I'm right there with you on that.
Right. And we got I just saw a message from Doug. We were talking earlier about he's wanting to clarify. I did that. It was confusing. Let me see if it kind of runs all together on this group chat thing. But Doug says, Brunson, and earlier we were talking about the mucoid plaque stuff, and Doug said, I tried psyllium husk a couple times in the morning, but never did the bentonite clay. Okay, so he wanted to make that clear. I had used herbs a month or so ago when I posted the video about parasites, but when I just recently eliminated the mucus rope, it was due to longer mucusless periods and regular lemon enemas, so nothing fancy. So I really feel as though the longer mucusless periods are the most important aspect of the healing system, even more so than the fasting. Okay. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
feel
that's
that.
real. That's real.
Yeah. And I should. Do you think should I show them the picture in the video? Should I show them the mucoid plaque
Yeah,
picture?
definitely. Definitely.
All right. Let's get it going and hope that, that the group is public. I hope nobody wouldn't.
For those who are ready, like.
Yeah. So right. So this is a spoiler alert. We're going to show you a picture of mucoid plaque. So if you don't believe in it and you don't it's kind of like you tell children or children's parents or something when they're, if you still want your children to believe in Santa Claus, then have them turn away and not listen right now, because this is this is some real stuff going on.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's see the little funky thing real quick, and boom, here we go. So this is Doug's
Yep.
big long mucoid strand, right? Yeah. And we've all seen this,
right. Mucus monster.
Yeah, exactly. It looks. That's what it looks like. It looks like a mucus monster, in this thing, and so, and people want to get real intense on like, what is it? Is it a parasite? Is it this? It's mucus. That's what we're saying. Like Mucus-less Diet Healing System. This is what's normal, is eliminating this, and this is what's in us. And so once we come to accept that this is our lives. This is what's in us. This is what, how, like I said, my kind of questions, how many strands of mucoid plaque like this are in a session of Congress? If you were to take all the intestines of every politician and you were to empty their bowels out, how many pounds of mucoid plaque would be there? This is what is influencing the decision making all around the world, from politicians up in an ivory tower somewhere to street level thugs out there trying to beat someone up, or something. For me, it's all relative. Ain't one better than the other. It's all constipation, it's all ignorance, and it's all needs to be cleaned if we're ever going to see anything that resembles peace in the world. People always throw that concept around, and world peace, and we just want to just love each other. It's like, man, there's only so much loving that you can honestly do when you're totally constipated with this stuff. Because what happens is, for a lot of people that think that they're super spiritual and all this kind of stuff, and you start taking their stimulants away, you take their coffee away, you take their smoking away, you take their alcohol away, you take their mucus away, and then all of a sudden they're not Mr. Happy or Mrs. Happy anymore. They're not Mr. and Mrs. Happy next door. People anymore. And stop it. Sorry about that, everybody. Quick transition. I gotta find a way to make those transitions more eloquent. But but that, as long as that stuff is up in there.
Yeah, right, man.
And that's always the thing.
That's the thing, man. Is like. That's something that just always hits me real hard, man, when I just see like how many people have to run to stimulant after stimulant to try to preserve this kind of happiness. That's such a deep part of life as we know it that it's just ridiculous. And like this whole mucusless diet thing, like this makes us so strong because we actually get to experience that kind of purity and learn to cope and become, I'm not going to say happy, like everybody's not happy or whatever, but it's just like I just see like with family and friends and whatnot, when the stuff is gone, like I'm straight, I'm cool for a longer period than I was in the past. You know, and that's so profound to me, man, because I'm not freaking out about like, oh, there's nothing in the house, or I'm not freaking out like there's no coffee in the morning, there's no soda at noon. Like that stuff's not bothering me, man. It's just so many people are caught up in that chase.
Yeah.
It's heavy, you know, and it all comes down to that mucus plaque, that just uneliminated feces. You know, if you were to take that out, they wouldn't want the coffee, they wouldn't want the cigarette. Like it would stop in one day if you could just take that out of the colon and intestines. It'd be like turned off by the smell of cigarettes, turned off by the smell of coffee. Everything would change in one day, 1 hour. You know, because you know, and touching on the parasite thing is like the mucus is the bed for all that stuff. So if you get out some mucus, like there's bacteria in there, there's old feces, there's mucus of various ages, there's all kind of stuff up in there, and worms, and that's the bed for the worms, you know. They say like just walking barefoot on the earth, you come in contact with all these worms and parasites, and but if your body is clean, the parasites don't deal with you. Either they go in you and they come back out and they don't proliferate, or they don't even go in you. You know, I don't know. They probably go in you and then just come back out. But
well, they don't even want to go in.
Dead, you know.
Yeah. Well, me and Brother Air was talking about this the other day because we were like, well, when you start compare our garbage to garbage of your next door neighbors, and our garbage is not gonna have, you know, you open it, like you put some stuff out there and it's sitting out there for a week, and you come back and you open it up and there's a bunch of maggots in there. That don't happen to Mucusless Diet practitioner. You know, it ain't gonna be, you know, a maggot filled garbage can. You know, you might have some fruit flies and some ants a bee in there and that kind of thing, but you know, it's a whole different trash bag. And the majority of the stuff you're throwing away, a lot of that stuff you could put into a compost, because you know, I think it's what, and I think I don't know, I said this in when it was, but it was recently. I said this where I was like, why would you eat something that's not good enough for your compost heap? Because they tell you don't put cooked meat into your compost heap.
Right.
Well, that makes sense. Don't put cooked food in general in your compost heap. You know, so why would we want to you know, eat foods that's not good enough for our compost heap? I mean, that's a pretty good, you know, that's a good quote.
Yeah, it is.
that one makes sense. And so, you know, so I mean, we just got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of you know, a lot of ground to cover. You know, time. You know, it's just work to do. And so yeah, so I'm checking one last time, see if there's any other questions. Okay. So yes, I think we're gonna wrap it up for this question and answer session. This was fun. You know, kind of did things a little bit differently, and I like being able to put the embed the video on Mucus-free-Life.com. You know, so folks that were watching it there and commenting from there, that I think that worked out really well. And then I could just check that if people did I got a couple comments that way, and I was able to get it. I was able to check it and see immediately that came in, and then there's the question and answer thing that's on the Google Hangout, and which was one question that way. So, you know, so we just trying to, you know, find different ways. We found that a lot of people like these live videos, and right now we kind of just make them when we have the time. You know, in the future we want to try to be able to plan for them a little better, and you know, and organize them and have them out there. You know, I want to get into some more webinar kind of things in the future. And, you know, we got a lot of stuff in store for the future. You know, there's a lot of people that's starting to plug in now, that's starting to understand this information, that's getting excited about it, that's using it, you know, working the system, and bringing things to the table, and just doing the work. And that's what I've always said about our community is about doing the work. I mean, it's we relate to one another by doing this work, and so it's not just based on a belief system or based on this. You don't have to believe everything Eric had to say or anything I have to say or Tony has to say or Brother Eric has to say, but the work is gonna be the work. Like, there ain't no getting around. I mean, you're either doing the work or you're not doing the work. And there really ain't no, you know, like it just ain't about a belief system, you know, because the work you do is going to start changing how you think. And that is, and if there's something that could be scientifically examined in this whole process, that's what I would be interested in trying to see if I can look at scientifically is there's a scientific nature to the change in consciousness that people go through based on doing the work and having these similar experiences. You know, and there's certain things that almost everybody I know that's practiced a diet has gone through in terms of just these it's just like this path, this road, and there's aspects of it that's similar for each person, and there's aspects of it that's very singular to that individual person that chose this direction. And so so that's something that interests me. You know, I get real interested in seeing once I find people that's really doing the work, then I like to talk to them and really see, okay, well, what are you doing? You know, how is this stuff affecting you and your life, and you know, and just the details of that, because there's so much information and data that you can get from somebody that's really doing it, you know, that's doing the work. And what you try to get is basically something that can inform your practice. So if you talk to somebody and they're telling you about the mistakes that they made or the wrong turns that they did, then you can choose to not do the same thing. Okay, well, let me not go down that road. Let me go down this road over here. And so yeah. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This was you know, a lot of fun. I want to thank Tony for being on here. And you have any last minute shout outs or words of wisdom for folks here?
Oh man, just I guess shout out to Doug for doing the work on that side, man. You know, I wish that I had took pictures of a lot of that stuff when it came out of me. I'm actually excited to get into a more aggressive fast and try to see if I can get some picture worthy friends. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, man. That's.
But yeah,
man,
shout out to everybody on the Arnold Eric forum, and but it is.
Most definitely. So yeah. So until next time, peace, love, and breath.